Welcome to Season 3 of The Lifestyle Chase, and I'm your host, Chris Little. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. To help this podcast grow, please share it on social media, rate 5 stars, tell your friends, and check out the past 140 episodes and counting. You can follow me on Instagram at Christian Little and at The Lifestyle Chase. Thanks for listening. Let's get started. Okay, so welcome to The Lifestyle Chase. This is episode 160, and I am joined by the one and only Sahmura Gonzalez. I tried to get the name right. Hopefully I got it close. How are you doing today?
You did. Thank you for having me. I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What was your day like today? Like, give me a look into the window of what life is like for you. Like, how did it start off? Just like today as an example.
Actually today, last night I went to bed with like a raging migraine. So funny you should ask. I had like a migraine tension headache and I woke up feeling pretty shitty. Um, but luckily today I've been, since the pandemic hit, my whole uh schedule has been like just completely flipped on its head, and turned around. And so I'm all pretty much virtual right now. And Thursdays I've kind of allotted to things like podcasts or paperwork, anything that I need to do outside of just training and coaching sessions. So luckily, I had some leeway with feeling bad today. So I woke up. It was like a really slow start to the day, and I did go to the gym, and struggled through that, threw up, and then was like, do I feel better? Maybe I do. Let's keep going. I'm not a hardcore person by any means, so I don't normally like power through workouts to try to throw up. I didn't feel good. And then I'm here, and that's kind of like it sounds like a weird day, but that
That's a
was
very realistic day. Like, you didn't tell us that you're
yeah.
writing a book, or like, I mean, it's okay if you were writing a book, but like everything sounded like something I could relate to. One thing is that some of my audience won't know who you are, and I want them to get a good idea of like what you do, what you're proud of, and what defines you as you are today.
Huh. Okay. Who I am and what I'm proud of and what defines me. That's a big thing to ask. My name is Samura. My parents made my name up through muscle testing. If it gives you any idea of how I grew up in Oregon. And I moved to New York about going on 14 years ago to school. Um, but I grew up in a very what wasn't cool at the time and is now considered cool household of alternative medicine and lifestyle. Um, so I think that kind of gave me a strong background in making possible what I'm doing today, I think. Um, So yeah, I'm kind of rambling, but how did I start? I got here, I went to school. I came here to go to school, and then after I graduated, I gave myself a couple years to figure out what I was doing. Gave myself a year, and it started going into a couple years. And I was like, I didn't go to college to become a nanny, so I need to figure this shit out. And I got into training, and it wasn't far off from, I don't come from a family of doctors, and teachers and lawyers. My dad is the first person in his family to go to college. He went to UCLA, but then he became a carpet cleaner, actually, which is like great that he started his own business. I'm very, look up to him for a lot of things. But so going into something non-traditional was within the realm of possibilities for me. And he was an Olympic wrestler and a coach, and my sister was an athlete and got into health coaching. So I was like, okay, training can be something that I enjoy. And I almost actually went into geriatric nursing before I went to a traditional Bachelor of Arts. So this is within the field of like, I think this is something that I enjoy working with people. I care for people. Let's start with training. And at the same time that I did that, I took a life coaching course. Um, and those are primarily just like communication skills and strategies to work with people. And then, like 6 years later, I decided to go into health coaching at the same time as training. Um, and then that's kind of like brought me down to the path now. That was like a very long-winded answer, and I don't really know if that gave a good idea of who I am. But in a succinct answer, I am a personal trainer and health coach in New York City.
That was perfect. I mean, I
There
like
we
that you went into like the background,
go.
just to kind of give more context, because when people understand the context behind like why you do what you do, it kind of gives more buy-in. It kind of intrigues a person to listen further. Just out of curiosity, what was like your first year in like the fitness industry realm like? Can you recall that? Can you think of like any things that kind of pop out in your memory?
Yeah, it was. So I started working. This is actually how I met Kyle Dodds. He was the assistant manager at the gym that I started at. Um, and I knew at that time, uh, like I I had a certain amount of money in my bank account. If we're talking realistic, how it started out, and I was like, I have 3 months to make this work. And I can either buy like like feminine hygiene products or a coffee. And like, what am I gonna buy today? And I had I had unlimited, not, I had limited funds to work with. So when I started, I think I started in like February in this gym. I started in February of, I don't know, 2013. And by May, I was a full-time trainer, 120 hours a month, or yeah, of sessions. Um, so it was about 30 sessions a week, 30, 40 sessions a week. I had to build up from scratch to get there. Um, and then, working in a corporate gym, you can get really caught up in, hey, I'm a competitive person and it's not healthy, but it helped me drive. Like, financially, I needed to make money. And then you get caught up in, uh, like the drive and I don't know what the word is, but um, sales in a gym. And so within like the first year, I was working, I don't know, 180 sessions a month, 100 close to like maybe even more, 190. Um, and it was great to get that many sessions under your belt and to get like to be that successful in a fitness industry right away, but it was very exhausting.
So what
So
did
that
that
was like
period
the
of
first
time
year.
teach you? Like what kind of stood out? What did you have to do to kind of build yourself back up after being so exhausted during that time?
Well, I kept going actually. So it just kept going for like another 7 years actually. Until 2017, until I went and created my own business. I left the gym. So I was at this corporate gym for about 4.5 years. But I think that whole time that it taught me, I stayed there out of fear of making a big transition and will my clients come with me? Um, you do have a safety net, a pool of people to always work from, even though all of my clients I've just gotten from referrals. But you have health insurance, you have the safety net of stuff within a big box gym. But I think what it taught me those years, uh, was that in this industry, like, I hate the word grind, but there is a certain amount of work that you have to put in the beginning. And you don't want to, it's not sustainable, but there are some sacrifices that you have to make in the beginning with this if you want a solid client base. moving forward.
Yeah, I mean that totally
Yeah.
makes sense. You have to be willing to like embrace the suck in the industry. Like
Yeah.
certainly a person can get themselves to a place where they can kind of have that self belief to take that leap and get the guidance needed to refine their daily schedule. Like I hear about so many people that we both know that kind of like change logistics so that they could get more like work life balance. When it came to you kind of leaping out of that gym setting, like what was the tipping point? What kind of like made you say, okay, no more, let's go?
Yeah. Okay. And also, I thought one more thing about the last thing, and it's that I feel like what I did notice, and I've seen now even just within myself, but I would notice with trainers coming in is that if they had anything to fall back onto, if they lived at home or they had another job, and they had something that didn't push them, like this is like you have this certain amount of money and like it's gonna run out if you don't do something. If you have a fallback plan, you're so much more likely not going to uh, do what you want to do in that in another area.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
When it came to the jump out of the gym, what
Yeah.
was the tipping point?
Um, I could see myself going backwards. I was, how old was I? I was 28 or 9, maybe I was 29. What year is this? I don't know. It's not that much. Every time is like weird right now. I think it was like 29, 28 or 29. And I felt like I was really successful and got to where I wanted to be in my, early to mid to late 20s. And then um, I felt like I kind of hit a plateau and I was like, okay, I'm okay hitting this plateau because like you can't climb forever and I just need to like be here and build for a while. And then I felt like I just could see myself like if a car stalled on a hill and I could just see myself like rolling backwards. Um, and I think at that point I knew I mean, besides like it being like a toxic gym culture and other things too, but I knew that it was my time to leave. And I think trainers leave, uh, a lot of people leave too early and out of a big box gym thinking they can make it on their own. And I had 4 years, 4.5 years under my belt, and I was like, I think if this is too early, then I'm kind of fucked. Like, I need to leave now. But I planned for it for like a year. I whittled everyone's sessions down. And, hopefully no one from corporate company listens to this, but I took 40 of my clients with me. Like I planned down to a spreadsheet of when their sessions would be over, to make sure that those years that I put in, I got something out of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense. And I think a lot of people have a shared experience, whether the big corporate gyms like it or not. It's just like you have to foster the environment that helps people grow continuously. And at that point where they feel like they've plateaued, it's kind of inevitable that they're going to take their legacy and keep growing. Like, legacy being all these people that they've impacted, you make these connections, you foster this
Yeah.
relationship. You can't just snip that off. Like, a lot of people, when you're working with a client for a long time, like they're all of a sudden they're kind of like family or friends. Like you've forged this really strong connection. When it comes to forging connections, like what is your experience with that? Like, what are the things that stand out the most to you when you're thinking about creating a connection with a human being or just with a client, just in your career?
Hmm. Um, Listening. That's like the first thing that I can think of. I mean, a part of why I left too is because I wanted to get in. I had over the years, I think the year before I left, I became a health coach. Um, and I think, uh, yeah, those skills of listening and showing empathy, um, and like understanding where they're at and being ready to meet them where they're at is critical for this. I mean, for any relationship, but especially in this profession. whether you're a health coach or a trainer. If you're going to be working with people who are going to be, it's a pretty vulnerable position for them to be in, especially if they want to make any sort of progress. They're going to need to share a lot about their lives.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
mean, it's so true, even just reflecting on just how powerful it is to just learn different ways to listen. Like, communication is a pretty solid skill for a person to have in this industry, and sometimes it just people take it for granted, like how much further we can progress our career and retain our clients just by simply like holding space for people and finding out like how they communicate and sort of like understanding how to take feedback in a way that moves the needle forward instead of taking feedback and getting offended that somebody didn't like the exercise we chose or something like that.
yeah, that's spot on. I think trainers, like, we really have to um, lose our ego. And we have to, I think it is a big part of it, of saying, I'll always say, like, if there is something, like, I can't adjust unless you tell me. And it may be hard for me to hear, but I need to. Um, and, there are things that, yeah, I think that you said it really well. Like, we have to be able to hear what our clients are telling us. That's the whole point of, in coaching. It's like we take a very coach-centered approach usually to our clients. But it's them and it's their time, and this is their show.
Well, I mean, on that topic, like I can think of a few times when I've taken feedback from a client, like they've told me something about something that I thought was awesome, and it turned out from their experience it wasn't awesome. And I had to kind of like sit in that and then make that adaptation, and then that was a point where I realized like it doesn't matter how many new skills I learned from a seminar or how many different like drills I could do. It's like if my client doesn't feel like it's working for them, I should probably move on to something else. Like no matter what kind of skills that I've learned. But bringing it back to you, can you think of a time where you received feedback that you had to kind of sit on for a bit and brew on and like learn from it?
Oh, within my client situation, like, I mean, probably. I can't think of a specific moment, but I can think of, like, if clients, they'll say, like, I really hate this exercise, or, and it just comes up every day where they're going to say something that they don't like, or something that's going on, or something that they can feel frustrated or whatever. And I think it's like, instead of getting, really defensive or being like, well, it's because of this, and this is why we're doing this, but just being curious and asking questions. Um, I think there's like a two-part to that, right? Like, setting aside like your own initial feelings, and this is any time that you're working with someone, like, being really setting aside like your own initial reactions to things and trying to be as, like, kind of objective as possible, but also just asking questions as to what, and maybe it's different than what they said too. Maybe it's not like they hate this exercise and it's like, okay, it's hard, or like, this is something that, like, I'm afraid of, and okay, what is it that you're afraid of, or what is it? So I think, like, it's more just asking questions, like being curious, and with them, without like judging them for what they're saying. Well,
Definitely.
that kind of was not exactly going where you asked, but it was, uh,
Well,
yeah.
it kind of tied into a good follow up, just like when I reflect on times when like a client of mine has said, "Oh, like this exercise sucks," or like I hate this exercise. Like I can ask another question and I can realize it was actually their favorite exercise that they did. They just like to voice what they feel when they're doing it. Like, it's just like, um, I really personally like the assault bike. After I finished it, I might be like, that was brutal, but I'll probably go back and do it. Like I'm most likely to do that exercise just because like I can really put in a max amount of effort. Risk of injury is very low, and it's just like that. Those kind of scenarios are very rewarding for a client when they're able to really present a lot of effort and competency. And sometimes we need to give them that opportunity, and not asking the right questions. We could totally have canceled that after they said that it sucked. And so it's
Or
cool.
think, yeah, think they're lazy or think like whatever, we have we all hold judgments. And I think um, it's easy to like, if you don't question like your own, like, how am I feeling about this or why am I feeling this way? Um, if I do receive criticism, maybe I'm like blocking it from my memory, but I can't think of any recently or anything. But if there is something that I have a reaction to, it's generally like, okay, what, like, I may rant for a bit of like, my head go off, and then I'm like, okay, it's like, and then take a step back and be like, what is it? And why am I feeling this way? Or what's their side to it? And then be curious as to like going into what does it mean for them and ask questions.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's a good
Yeah.
sign that you've been open to feedback in the past and that you are able to action it, and it doesn't feel like anything out of the ordinary. It's like, oh, they've responded as to the impact that this choice or exercise had, and then you could circle back and make the right adaptation or the right pivot, and then business as usual, move on, carry on, just another day. It doesn't become like a flashbulb memory in your mind. To kind of keep things moving along, like you talked about how you were prepping for sort of like a year going into your big leap. You talked about kind of prepping your clients for it. What was it like to kind of think about going into business, like thinking about that independent factor, and what it would be like to not be under the umbrella of a greater entity?
It was terrifying. It was. I think the day that I left, um, I had like my jaw was like locked up. I was really, I had carried a lot of, I now have a night guard for that because I think I do carry a lot of tension in my jaw. But I was terrified. I was really, there are a lot of unknowns. And I had, for the first time in my life, I had insurance. I didn't grow up with insurance. Um, And, my parents, I always thought we were like into alternative medicine as kids, but I actually think it was we just didn't have money for insurance. Um, but so, I had something steady and I was like, okay, I can keep this insurance for a few more years and then I'll have to figure that out on my own too. But I think it was terrifying, but I also knew like I was capable of running a business. I just think, there's always a lot of unknowns, um, taking some sort of leap like that. Even if you were to transfer from one corporate job to another corporate job, any change, there are going to be unknowns.
Well, I mean, it comes down to the fact that like people are scared of like uncertainty and change and like stress, but like that's where the big
Yeah.
things happen. Like, what are three things that really stand out in your journey since like 2017 or so?
Mm. Like three big,
It could be like a big leap that you made personally where it was just like, wow, I never realized I was capable of that. Or it could be like a record business year. It could be you decided to do some traveling. Anything that pops out in your mind, I'm ready.
yeah. Okay. I made a discovery, and I know maybe I've known it before, but that I needed to like, if I needed something to like push me to make those changes that scared me. And I had to like, I don't know, it's probably why someone hires a personal trainer, right? They need some sort of form of accountability. And we all need it. And I had gone through this health coaching certification, um, actually at the beginning of 2017. And I did like the first half, and then, but I couldn't call myself a certified health coach yet. And then I left and I formed the business, and I was just kind of like, I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself like a year to form this together. And then I really wanted to try to start making my own health coaching business of just like have at least half of my practice, like my work be that. But then I like never really got into it. I was like really afraid to start having these sessions, and I was like not confident in my ability to do it. I think it was more just like fear of of failure and not sure if like, you're not going to get better at something until you do it. And I wasn't doing it. And so I didn't feel like I was good at it. And I had to sign up for the boards, and I was like, there are national boards for health coaching. It's like, if I don't like, I had to have a certain amount of practice hours to be eligible to sit. And so I signed up for another health coaching certification, which allowed me to get the practice hours. I think I just like the biggest things that I had to do over, I think the boards, that's a long-winded answer, but passing the boards was one of the biggest accomplishments in like the last 3 years. And creating just more of like a sustainable lifestyle for myself. I think, I mean, up until the pandemic, I was still waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning for my sessions and leaving the house at like 3:50. And hopefully, like, I'm not going to go back to that after this. But, it's just been like a slow transition, I think, over the years to get to where I want to go and to create the lifestyle that I want to have.
Well,
Yeah.
that completely makes sense. And I mean, just those little
So
moments of
long-winded.
like the moments of like self-doubt, or just like the uncertainty where it's like, oh, is this gonna work out? Or oh, we're gonna have to accumulate a lot of like effort. And it's, I think back to my podcast, like my very first episode was September 2018. And I was like, oh, like, is this going to get listeners? Or just like those doubts. And I think back to the podcasts that I listened to before I started my own, and just kind of reflecting on like, oh, what if I got to be on a podcast, or what if my voice got to be on a platform, and what would that be like? But no, I couldn't possibly. And all it really took was just like starting, putting in one single rep, not really caring about failure or what the outcome was, but just knowing that like you're not going to get to episode 160 if you don't put in episode 1. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, everybody needs to have some kind of like a body of work. Like, you've got hundreds, thousands, probably a shit ton of sessions under your belt. And like, you know that you're capable of things, and then you can apply that same competency to other categories. I know that we've kind of outlined this a little bit, but like, what was it that made you really dial it into like that health coaching aspect of business?
For a huge handful of reasons. I think the first thing was, well, okay, well, there's like the business side of it, and then there's like the side of like of helping people. I think I didn't want to just like, I wanted more variety in my training and what I could offer people. I knew that there was so much more that goes into changes than just someone coming in once a week, twice a week. And there's so much more work that has to happen behind the scenes. And I'm just, feeling frustrated with the process. And this, like, training is very, can be very, like, prescriptive. Like, you need to eat this, you need to do this, no excuses. Like, the language that we use with clients is not working. And I know there's, like, this buzzword in the last, like, year or two, I wouldn't say two, like, year of, like, behavior change and coaching psychology. And people are recognizing this need for like, looking at, like, the psychological aspect of it and these aside, but I think that there's still like conflicting language that's being used when talking with clients. So that's really kind of like why I was like, this is the direction that I need to go. And if I really want to help people, and there's so much more that I need to learn and develop this in my skills. And that's like at the heart of my business, right? Like, I enjoy like, no, I don't enjoy. I will learn biomechanics and like because I need to for my job, but it's not like what I love. I love connecting with people. I love um, helping them truly with their goals and making them feel better. And there's only so much biomechanics is going to get you to do that. So that's ultimately like why I went into it. I went into it also because like you're going to cap out financially just doing one-on-one training. You don't want to get up at 3 a.m. Like, and as a woman too, I think it's really hard. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like if I end up having kids, but it's not a sustainable job to have, or at least the hours that I'm training now isn't sustainable for a family. So just trying to like look ahead a little bit instead of end up like, and I don't know, as a 40-year-old woman who wants to have kids all of a sudden, and now it's like, what do I do?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably one of the most realistic reflections a person can take. Like, and it kind of paves a path for other people that might see themselves in a similar situation. Like, people want to have a legacy. People want to live a life outside of their job and get some decent sleep. And so it's extremely realistic, and it's kind of, in a lot of cases, it's like there's this box drawn that we have to fit inside this box, and we have to be like on the floor training clients, or we have to do a certain thing, look a certain way, be a certain kind of person. But it's just kind of like, if you have sort of like a vision of what you want, and your vision was you wanted to kind of genuinely help people, and it went beyond the fitness aspect, it went beyond like the exercise, then just roll with it. And like, that's the cool thing, is that is exactly what you're doing. And so by having you on the show, my hope is that it kind of gets other people kind of thinking like, oh, I've been really sitting on an idea that I've had for a long time, and I haven't really like taken the leap, or I didn't think that was even possible. So if I put in the reps, maybe I can get to that stage one day. And just the whole idea of like bringing up the fact that a lot of people in the fitness industry, like they burn the candle at both ends, and they never even consider the fact that like, yeah, they would like to like retire one day, or they'd like to have kids, or they like to go on walks with their dog in the daylight and not at 1 a.m, and just like things like that. I'm curious, like, you talked about how you met Kyle. How did things kind of like come together where you sort of like started working with him more again?
Kyle, I'm a crier. I'm not going to cry now, but he has been one of the most influential people in my life, as I'm sure for many people. But just a little backstory on how great he is. When I first started, he would train me at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd get there before the gym to open. And he would train me like just one-on-one sessions, and then we would start the day of training and like be on the hunt for people on the floor, like I would sing the little like jazz thing as I went on the floor, like dun-na, dun-na, and then I'd like crawl up on people, and but this is a little side note, but he just was so incredibly supportive in the beginning, and just gave I think he had a toddler at the time, and he lived in Williamsburg, and he commuted in to train me at that crazy hour. And so I just felt like he always had my back. And it's very much a boys' club, this industry. And so, I trust him so much. That I think we never really lost touch, but he went on to leave and worked for Peak Performance and some other places. And then when he moved, I still stayed in touch with him. But it was another thing where I reached out to him, I think like February of last year, a few weeks before everything started shutting down. And it was like, I was like, this is my bud, this is my big brother. But I was like sweating under the armpits, and I had to reach out to him to be like, I want a health coach for you. I want to do something in this capacity with you. But it was another one of those moments of like, if I don't do this now, I'm not going to make, like, this isn't going to be, I think if we're going back to like, what are those like three big things that happened this year. I can't name three, but I can name like a few instances of like, if I don't do this right now, it's not gonna happen. And that was one of them. If I don't reach out to Kyle and make this happen, like there could be some part of my journey that like, isn't gonna happen in this way. And so I reached out with him, and we were working on a project to create like a health coaching program for corporate gyms or corporate companies. And I was going to work with Gerard Friedman. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah, I think I follow him on
within the
Instagram
circle.
or something.
Yeah. So we were working together, and then, the pandemic never ended. So then we had to like shift courses and I went down the route of making a program for trainers, a behavior change program for trainers. But that's kind of where I got, that's where we are today with what I'm doing for him with health coaching.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's cool how you talked about the whole like idea of like if you don't do it now, like it won't happen, or just like that whole like let's go, like there's never the right time, but you have to like do something. Because I think I mean, I can speak to times in my life where I've had to do that. Like my whole leap into the fitness industry was a whole like let's get reckless and let's just leave our job and let's go. And I think a lot of people have a story very similar to that. I want to hear more about like what that whole program is for trainers. Like, kind of give me the Coles notes, sell me on it. Like, tell me what it's all about.
It is like we can be great friends. We can be empathetic. I even just say like personal trainers are like expensive friends, basically. Like we're pretty good at making connections. Generally, like if you have a successful business, you're good at building those kinds of relationships. But there are like fundamental communication skills that go beyond that, and behavior change strategies. And there's a full process, right? Of like even like the trans theoretical model of change, like where people are and the different stages of it. And I think we as trainers need to get better at meeting our clients where they're at. And understanding like the language that they're using, and then how to meet them with a certain kind of language. And so that was our goal, is to just be like, this is, we want to teach, like basically took like all of my trainings from, I went to Duke Integrated Medicine for health coaching, all of my trainings from them. And Gerard took his trainings he did a Chris Kresser Institute. And we kind of just put together this 6-week framework of how would you, if someone came to you for like even a new client, or say it's like how do you just jump in with a current client that you have and understand where they're at, like giving them kind of like the framework of the different stages of change, and how to approach each one, kind of, right? And we mix motivational interviewing in there too, with kind of each stage, and the skills and strategies to use. Yeah,
That makes sense.
that's it. There's a process to it, and I don't think that trainers can, or it's becoming known a little bit more. But I think that like our goal is just to try to get that out there, that there is so much more behind someone. Like they're not lazy, they're not a bad client. There is a language, and there is a process to them changing, and we need to recognize that.
Well, I like that you outlined that whole like they're not a bad client. Like I'll hear of instances where a person's like, "Oh, I'm working with this really difficult client." It's like, well, did you get on their level? Did you like figure out what they're all about, so you could kind of like understand where they're coming from when you're thinking that they're not like going the way you want them to go? Like, I found in my experience in my career, just like all the different jobs that I've had outside of fitness have sort of like helped me see multiple different perspectives, to kind of be able to like understand like, okay, this person says this is what they do for work, this is what they're dealing with, these are like the pressures that are on them. Like I can kind of like latch onto that first, and then think about exercise second, still prioritizing exercise. I mean, they're paying me for that, but then I can kind of figure out how to translate it to that specific person having a better
Yeah.
idea of where they're coming from and not being so biased towards like just exercise, that's it. If they don't like this thing, shut her down, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. I think like you said it's I mean primarily if someone comes to me and they want to exercise is a way for them to get to their goals, but that's not maybe what they value, Like what do they value? What do they really want to do? Why are they coming to you? And even if it's just to look better and to feel better, and exercise is one way to get there. Um, speaking their language of what is this, what is, what do you value?
Well, I
Um,
think a lot of people that we probably have both come across are valuing us because we empower them to see that they're ready for whatever life has in store
yeah,
for them. Like they don't have to have all these additional resources kind of thing. They are equipped with a body that moves and works and functions, and with a little bit of like the right perspective or the right attitude, they can move the needle further in the direction that they want to go. They don't need like this fancy accessory or supplement. Like they truly are equipped, and it's like we help them connect those dots, and that's where they see value. And it's we might connect the dots through an exercise that helps their heart rate and helps their heart health, or we might connect the dots with strength that helps them go up and down the stairs, or helps their posture so that they're not thinking of, well, like posture just like bracing strength, just like being able to sit on a chair and not like walk away and think, oh, my lower back is sore. Like just I went on off on a huge ramble, but it's just like the value in our industry, a lot of that comes context specific, and it's not going to be the same for everybody. But when we're able to distinguish that context that that person has picked out, then we can figure out how to replicate that and retain them and change their lives and make a greater impact. And in our own selfish way, like then we have done what we set out to do. Like then we feel accomplished in that way.
yeah, I agree. You said make them feel equipped. I don't know exactly how you said it, but it's true in that like we want to give them the tools, basically. We want to make them feel because they do, and they know everyone's like, you're gonna hear this. I hear this, I don't know, can't say how many times a week that I hear it from clients. I know what I need to do, I just need to do it. Or like if I just yeah, that's it. I know what I need to do, I just need to do it. And these clients, our clients have the tools, and maybe they need some new ones, and that's where we're gonna help them figure it out too. But a lot of the time they just need to like process and talk through and like get to talk through different strategies to get to new places. But we want to give them the tools, maybe new ones, or help them find ones that they had and they didn't realize, um, so that they can keep going even when they have made a change. And I think that's a big thing too, is we wanted them to feel like I mean, self-efficacy is like a huge word thrown around in this, but they want to make them feel like confident that they can, if something's going to come up too, and it inevitably will, because life is going to throw a ton of shit at you, like feel like they're confident navigating whatever is going to come their way.
Definitely. Are you a person that sets goals for your future? Like, do you set like 1 year goals, 6 month goals, anything like that?
Um, I do, kind of. I do, I guess, our goals. I create a vision plan. It sounds funny. But at the beginning of the year, I have like, if you heard of the wheel of life, it's like a wheel that kind of breaks up your life in 8 different areas, and it's like work, money, friends, home, all the different kind of areas, health, personal growth, all the different areas that kind of comprise our well-being. And I will take those different areas and kind of break down what I want to see happen in each area. And then I will further each quarter kind of break that into chunks. So like what I kind of want to accomplish in each area. And they may be specific things, like attainable, like I want this many things. So it's not just like I want more clients, like I want this many clients by this time. I want to get, I think I even have on there for like health, I want to get an average of like 6 hours and 50 minutes, 7 hours a night. Like by the end of this time, this is what I want. So I do. I haven't set like anything further out than a year.
Well, I like
Um,
that you talk about it in a holistic way where it's like encompassing things like friends and like family and just all the things that go into life. Um, what is it? What is the process that you go through to really like? Because people can set goals, but I feel like people are kind of hard on themselves. They're like, oh yeah, I will get ice cream next week, and then I'll have really made it. Like that's sort of like something that people know that they can do. How do you set a goal that there's a little bit of doubt whether you can do it or not, but you're setting that goal anyways? Like what is the thought process that you go through to like kind of get past that fear and like set something that would actually like put you in a position where you kind of feel like now you're really rocking and rolling?
I think being realistic about it is like, like being in tune with yourself too, and like what can I actually, I think there's a couple of things, and this is like I would say this is valid for working with clients too, but what's something that is like that I know that I'm gonna be able to achieve, because if I don't, then I'll feel really like it'll dampen my confidence in what I can do later on. So what do I know I can achieve? And I'll ask if I work with clients, I'll give them a scale, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most confident and one being not at all. How confident are you that you can, achieve this in this time frame? And if it's kind of anything lower than like an 8, then we'll talk about like what you need to make it um, achievable and feeling confident that you can do it. So I think it's like being confident, knowing that it's something that's like a reach and it's like, okay, this is kind of like a fun challenge, but that I know that I'm going to be able to do it. Um, and looking at like, it's kind of looking ahead too of like, I think financially, I was like, okay, I didn't make a financial goal of like, this is how much I want to make in this next year. Um, because there's so many unknowns this coming year. It's similar to last year. We all think 2021's a new year, but it's like there's a lot of it's almost like the same. Sorry guys, it's gonna be about the same. So I'm like I'm not gonna set myself up for failure in that sense of like I need to make this much by the end of the year, but I did make like a goal of how much I wanted to save in some sense. So I think it's like when you're making a goal, looking at like how confident am I? What are the circumstances? What am I working with? What are going to be the obstacles that are going to come up? um, and just being like really kind of analytical and realistic about what's the whole picture of this goal.
I really liked how you outlined the fact that like 2021 is not that it's going to be a bad year, but it's not going to be that much different than 2020. Like it's going to have its obstacles, it's going to have its challenges, but I've asked a few people like where they've experienced the most growth or like where they've yeah, it's basically growth oriented, and it's the discomfort of like having your back up against a wall in 2020 that made a lot of people grow. Like when I look back at myself, like well, I mean, I'll give a shout out to the Compound Performance Mentorship Group. I tend to do that every second episode or so. But like my online coaching business grew like a lot. Like by it went from $80 a month to like $1,800 a month or something. And so it's like I didn't even look at that because I was just like in this sort of like fight or flight, let's hustle, let's go. And it's that whole stereotypical hustle word, but it's just I wouldn't have achieved that in a non-pandemic year. I would have just been like, "Oh no, I'm not ready. I couldn't possibly. I can't apply myself. I can't fail." Like I mean, every process takes like some kind of struggle and some trial and error and some having to repeat it over and over and over and over and be kind of relentless in the pursuit. But a little bit of uncertainty isn't so bad. So when we're looking into 2021 and thinking about our goals and making them realistic, to not like beat ourselves down, but still making them so that we will be moving ahead. Like, it's exciting to think of like where a person could be in February 2022, where they might not even take into account how much growth can occur in a year's time. To kind of like narrow things down to a question that I ask all of my guests: if you could give one piece of advice on how to live your life to the fullest in the most authentic way, what would that piece of advice be?
Oh, how much time can you give me to think? Okay, let me think. Um, okay, how can you repeat the question again? I
So
just
essentially just like thinking of your life and thinking of a piece of advice that you would give to somebody else to help them live their life to the fullest in the most authentic way, just like by being themselves and by being truly as happy as a person could realistically be.
mm, being honest. That's like the first thing that like I don't know, I don't know if that's the best piece of advice, but that's the first thing that's coming to my mind. Being honest with yourself primarily, um, with who you are, and it's kind of like coming to terms with that and like being honest with like where what you can do to change. Being honest with those around you, being honest, like that's what's really helped build my business. That's what's created a lot of trust in my business and clients who, yeah, who trust me. I think that's what it comes down to. But yeah, that's what I want to say. Being honest, I think it's being open and vulnerable. That sounds kind of cliche, but honesty. I'll just stick with that.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot a person can
Yeah.
do with that. I mean, it's not always the easiest path to just like stay true to your values and be honest with people and stand in your integrity. But like, if you're playing the long game, I am a firm believer that honesty will pay off. And like in
Yeah.
this crazy world of people wanting like instant gratification and just wanting to achieve these big things in record times, like the thing that'll keep your ship afloat for the long run would be honesty. So that was solid advice. But then I have another one for you. So this one, I'll ramble a little bit to buy you some time, but you're going to have to think of a challenge. You're going to have to think of a challenge for my audience. And I like to encourage people to not overthink this one, but kind of think of something that you might assume that they've never heard of before, something that like has your brand on it, but just something that they can apply to their day that might impact some change in the near future for them. So essentially what you'll have to do is you'll be like, your advice for the day is, or your challenge for the day is, and then just dish it out to them.
Oh, okay. Sorry, folks. Let me think. Um, okay. If this has been said before, tell me and then I'll come up with something else. Um, what is one of my goals like, and this was kind of like a um it was like a theme, I would even say. It wasn't a goal because it didn't have like like specificity to it. But it was to just do something and like if there was something that if it was big or small, but to do it in the moment if I was like thinking about it rather than kind of like putting it off out of like fear or whatever kind of thing that I had, going on for the reasons why I didn't want to do it, but like to kind of do it in the moment or to say it in the moment. And so if, my challenge to you is that if there is one thing, and it could be really small or really big, that you've had on your mind or a list, just to do that one thing. Because that builds, it really builds. And if, having one thing under your belt or taking one piece of action will, um, it's probably not going to stop there.
Yeah, I mean, that actually has never been said before. So that was perfect. You nailed it. You did good.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank
If
you.
people want to look you up, how do they find you? Where do they find you?
My Instagram, which I sporadically post on, I'm trying to come to a point of enjoyment with it. We'll get there. Is give me some more squats. Like give me some more squats, but it's Gimme and then my name Sahmura squats.
That's perfect.
And then my website is just my first name and last name.com.
Awesome.
Sahmura
And
Gonzalez.
I'll make sure to have that
Yeah.
in the description so people can hunt you down and see what you're all about. But thanks again.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. You're a great podcaster.
Thanks. I am promoting a brand called truLOCAL. They appeared on the Dragon's Den. Truly, what truLOCAL is they are your source to connect to your local Canadian meat supply. They are a Canadian company, and what I like about them is when you order in Alberta, which is where I am based, you are buying from an Alberta producer. It's a great way to support local while staying organized and getting high quality meat. It's convenient, delivered to your door, easy to use. You can save time by making fewer trips to the grocery store. You can master your meal prep and always know what meats you have on hand. Great for getting in your protein. It's a great way to support local farms in your province. If you're ordering from another province, they source it from that province. If you're ordering from Ontario, they'll source from Ontario. Being that I promote protein and I promote supporting local so much, this is my way of putting the two together, and you would be supporting me by using my promo code, which is True Lifestyle Chase, TRU Lifestyle Chase, and it'll get you some extra lean ground beef. If you have any questions, send me a message. You can also click the link, which will be in the episode description, to place your order. So thank you for supporting local. Thank you for getting in your protein, and thank you for watching.